Welcome to Bernie's Bums, episode 13. Olivia, how's it going?
Going pretty good yourself?
Hey, can't complain. Well, let's get into it right away. Let's put the bad stuff aside. Brewers finally got a big time win last night, um, putting up dingers left and right, scoring runs, put up 11 to 1 finish for the Brewers. Um, how how needed was that for the Brewers to try to get back on track?
I think it was extremely needed, especially putting up the big numbers and not just winning by like a 5-2 or something from a smaller margin, but getting all those runs and continuing to add on and getting the big blows. So I think this is a step in the right direction and hopefully it continues throughout the rest of the season.
Sure. And one weird stat for the Brewers is they were the only team up until last night. They were the only team without a grand slam until Yelich came through late in the game and hit a blast with bases loaded. So that leaves only the Cardinals without a grand slam on their total this year, and then the Astros have like 8. So it's kind of a not a super important stat, but it's something that is a little interesting, I guess. Um, Keston here is pretty dang good. I saw Adam McCalvey tweeted out this series. He has 3 singles, 1 double, a triple, a home run, 3 RBI, and he has only gotten out once. Sounds like he's not looking to get sent down again, huh?
No, he's definitely been as advertised, and I think since coming back up, the one thing that's improved a lot is his at bats. They've just been a lot more solid. He's not striking out as much as he was at first, and he's just making contact. And that's really what you have to do is just make contact because things are going to fall and things are going to go your way eventually. So he's been definitely huge, especially this series.
Absolutely. And speaking of just the minors, the reason why I bring up he doesn't want to get sent down is Travis Shaw's kind of knocking on the door again. He's put up kind of a modest. I'm just looking at average at this point, but a modest average of like 289, I believe, which is pretty good. But for a guy who you're expecting to be a major league talent right now, he's not. That doesn't necessarily jump off the page to you. But since July 11th, he's hitting 438, has 10 RBI, and has homered 3 times, and that's something that's the Travis Shaw that you're looking for. Um, just being able to do that at the AAA level. How long do you think until he is back up with the Brewers?
I don't know. That's a tough question
Right.
because I mean, we used his last option. So when you bring him back up, he's either got to be up to stay. Otherwise, I mean, you have to be for sure on him.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with Hira playing the way he is, there's just no, like, you can't, like, there's no excuse for him to really come up yet. And I think they'll just have to wait. I don't know, man. Like, I love Travis Shaw, but Keston Hira, man, like, he's good.
He's been incredible, and it's and for um, the easy thing to say would be like, well, how come you don't send Saladino back down? Well, the problem is for the Brewers, then they run into not having a backup shortstop. And had they not had a backup shortstop when Arcia went down earlier, they would have been in trouble because Hira, as great as he is offensively, already at the second base position has shown that he struggles defensively a little bit. And I can't imagine you bumping him over to short. Then again, in baseball, the way that it is today, and based off of even like Moneyball, when they talked about defense, doesn't really matter. So who knows? Maybe they'll move one of these guys over to short, but um, when it comes down to it, the bat will play. So that'll be an interesting thing to see. If you need a backup, does one of those guys slide in there? And I'm hard pressed to think that they would, but you never know. Um, and then other guys that are down right now, Jimmy Nelson started rehab, according to Todd Rosiak. He's going to be starting his rehab assignment in Appleton, and they're keeping him as a reliever in that in his rehab stuff. So, do we ever? I was a little, I'd say a little surprised by it, not totally blown away, but are we going to see Jimmy Nelson back to starting form ever, or is it just this year you need to get back into pitching again before we can even look at starting you?
And I think that's what it is. And two, you look at what we need as a team, and I think, gee, I forgot who tweeted it out, but our starting pitching hasn't been the issue the last
No,
couple of weeks. They've been doing very, very good. So when you look at that, there's no gap there that needs to be filled, and the issues that have been in the bullpen. So at the same time, you're trying to get Jimmy Nelson right while helping out the team. So I think that's where they're going to start. And I mean, he's always an option when a guy gets hurt or, whatever happens. And I think we will see him start again. But right now, it's just where the team needs him.
sure. And I'm in that camp too. It's something that it stinks seeing a guy that you've been pulling for and you hope that he gets back struggle as much as he has. But coming back from a major injury that sidelined you for over a year, that's not always the easiest thing for someone to be able to do. So hopefully he can get himself going and work his way back through his rehab assignments. A guy that's going to be good to go is Gio Gonzalez. Gio Gonzalez will be starting for Adrian Hauser on Saturday, and Hauser will be moved back to the bullpen. You talk about the starting rotation. Now you bring in Gio Gonzalez, a guy that's always, he's for the Brewers been a pretty just steady guy, which is important for what this team needs. You need steady people, and having Gio Gonzalez back, I think, is a major help. And being able to slide Hauser back to a position where he's been successful is going to be something that really benefits the Brewers. So I think that may end up kind of changing the turning the tide of what's been going on with the Brewers. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even you think of when we acquired Gio earlier in the season, and just what he was able to bring, steadying the rotation and kind of steadying the team that was very up and down. So I'm definitely hoping to see that with him because he has that power. And also, like what you said with Hauser, just bringing him back into the bullpen that, one, needs help, especially in the back end, and two, where he's had a lot of success. So I think you're starting to kind of get everybody into the roles that you need for the rest of the season.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really hoping that I like Gio Gonzalez a lot, and he's not necessarily the big name that he might that he was when he was with Washington starting out, but I still think that he's a guy that contributes a ton to a rotation in like the mid to back end of it. So then going into you touched on the bullpen being the issue. You look at Hader giving up 2 bombs at major points in time. That's been the theme all year, though. If he's going to get hit, he's going to get hit hard. Are you concerned at all about this, or is it something that that's just what we know about him?
I'm not concerned at all. And you look at it when it's happening, it's coming after the All-Star break. That can always mess with relievers. And also, too, like what you said, when that's how runs are scored against him. He's a hard-throwing lefty, and when he misses, it's down the plate, and it's a 96-mile-an-hour straight ball going at a hitter. So when you look at it that way, it makes sense why that's how his runs are scored. But I'm not worried anything. You don't see any control issues or him walking a ton. So for that, I mean, that's just going to happen. And I think that's when you tip your hat to the other team saying, good job, you got him. So I'm not really worried at all.
Right. And so another guy that seems to pop up on this show a lot, which is weird, is Matt Albers. And it's always been either really, really good or really, really bad. And right now he's popping up for really, really bad. But my anger is not as heightened for him as it once was. He pitches a lot. Matt Albers throws a ton, and I know it's after the break, and he got rested, but he got touched up a little bit, and it was kind of funny. I was at the game on Friday, and one of the guys in our group, his name is Matt Albers too, so that was that was kind of funny. So we were messing with him a little bit, even though, kind of laughing through the pain a little bit. But it was hard to see. It's been hard to see him get hit around a little bit, but hopefully he can continue being a guy that you can rely on. I know when he struggles mightily, but I still think I'm complete 180 from what I was before when I said he ain't going to be on the team for the rest of the month at one point. I think he's going to be a guy that you need to lean on a little bit down the stretch. And I think Adrian Hauser joining the pen is going to it's not only going to help Adrian Hauser be more successful, but it's also going to allow a lot of these other guys to take some stress off of them, specifically Matt Albers, because Hauser can be that guy that you can go to eat up a few innings, as opposed to asking Albers to throw a couple innings multiple times throughout the week. And then let's get into some positive stuff about it. Your boy Freddie.
Hey.
What do you got to say about him?
Yeah, no, that was, in some pretty rough points. Him just being able to eat up innings and do that successfully, and just because at that point you're trying to get out and you're just trying to get through the game. So for him to do that and to do it pretty quickly as well, and to just get it done with, that's huge in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Another guy that I'm pretty actually jacked up about that I think is gonna be decent for him and actually be someone that's gonna help him out, even though he didn't the first time around as much. Jay Jackson. Um, when he came in his first day up, he threw 2 scoreless innings. That's one time out there, but I also think that I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be able to help him out. He's got a ton of energy. I think um, he's going to throw your mid 90 fastball, maybe get it up a little higher. But I just think there's a lot of positivity behind the guy, and like there's not a ton of baseball proof that I can stick behind him other than he just dominated when he was in the minors, when he was in AAA. But I'm hoping that translates up because he just seems like a guy that there's just a lot of emotion, and I don't want to just like compare him to Jeremy Jeffress in that regard just because they have the same initials and whatnot. But you have 2 guys that are really high emotion guys, and sometimes that can get the best of you. But what we've seen from Jeremy Jeffress over the course of his career with Milwaukee has been very positive. So if there's any parallel there, that would be a good sign for him to be a contributor for the Brewers this year. And let's switch gears to the offensive side. So Ryan Braun, his stance is, you're used to him pointing that bat kind of angled towards the pitcher a little bit behind his head. But now you saw him flatten it out a little bit. What do you make of him making his change, and do you think it's something that's going to stick?
Well, when you look at major league hitters, what a lot of people don't know is that they're constantly making adjustments with everything they do.
Sure.
It's a game of adjustments, and that's what it's come down to. Right now, you're just seeing one that's very visual and that you can see it. It is kind of big because you're talking about a guy who's had the same stance since Little League.
Mm-hmm.
And to kind of switch it up a little bit is different for everybody to see. But the reason why he did it is so sound. He just wants to get to the ball faster and improve that bat path just a little bit more. And I think it's been working. He's been doing great in my eyes. And I think, if it sticks, I don't know. It just kind of depends on how the rest of the season goes, how the pitchers adjust to him, and kind of how that goes around. But for now, it looks great.
Yeah, and you talk about getting your hands to the zone quicker, getting your hands to the ball. That's a huge thing. Like you look at the way that he's holding the bat, and it doesn't. When it comes down to it, it doesn't matter where you hold your bat, how you hold your bat, as long as you feel comfortable that you can get to a load and then explode through the ball. And for him, he's obviously, things change as you get older. Things change as there's different aches and pains. And for him, he's getting to the point where he's getting a little older. Pitchers aren't slowing down at all. Being able to instead of having that bat pointed towards the pitcher, now having to do another point in your, you're eliminating an excess motion in your timing, and you're able to just go straight from where he is and go straight to the ball. And I'm not sure if that, having the bat tipped was throwing off his timing or anything like that. Obviously, he's made a career off of doing that, but maybe this is going to be a move where he's able to just get the hands through the zone quicker, like he's looking for, and that could be something that really benefits the Brewers and could honestly possibly prolong his career. So we will definitely see. Um, Going into hitting home runs, Mr. Yelich decided to back out of the home run derby. I was a little bummed about that in the sense of um, just seeing. I love seeing the Brewers in there, but um, he made the right move for two reasons. One, with his back hurting, and then two, because he would have had to go up against Vlad, who absolutely mashed during the home run derby. But his spot was taken by Matt Chapman, the third baseman of the Oakland Athletics. But Mike Moustakas was offered the spot but declined. Um, you know, I don't think that that's necessarily news, but in the sense of him being in it or not being in it, are you happy he chose not to do it? Are you disappointed? Would you have wanted to see Mike Moustakas in the home run derby?
I mean, when you look at it, I mean, obviously you want people in your team to succeed and kind of be in those activities, but at the same time, his reasoning was, he did it a couple years back and he felt like one was enough, and he was able to just kind of relax. He watched it with his daughter from the bullpen, or from the dugout, excuse me. And so I think it wasn't like an injury or anything. It wasn't anything like that. I think just purely he just wanted some rest and to
Mm-hmm.
kind of get some time to gain back a little bit of tiredness or fatigue. And I completely respect that. And obviously, I want to see guys compete, but at the same time, I want to see him competing on the field when it matters.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was a cool moment for, obviously Matt Chapman got bounced in the first round, but it was a cool moment to be able to see him, his dad threw to him. And we've seen that before with other guys like Chris Bryant, Bryce Harper. But I always think that's a really cool thing to have a family member throwing to you, because you never know if you'll be able to do that again. So really cool for Matt Chapman, and honestly, and just cool for um, Moustakis to be able to take that in with his family and get some rest too. Um, all right, so let's take a look at yay or nays. So we saw Corbin Burns. He ended up going on the IL with like a 9 ERA too. Like he just has not been able to put things together in the right way. Corbin Burns. So yay or nay, Corbin Burns becomes a. Or how do I say this? So we have written down. So Corbin Burns figures things out before the end of the season. Is Corbin Burns? We'll say the Brewers make the playoffs. Is Corbin Burns on the playoff roster? Yay or nay?
I don't know. It's a long way away, but I
Sure.
think, I've spent hours upon hours looking at his pitches, what he's throwing at different counts and locations. And I think I looked at over 200 pitches of his in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was looking a lot at it. And from what I was able to figure out is that on two strike counts, especially within the last couple of weeks, he's seems to be overthrowing the ball, causing the ball not to break. And whether he's pressing to just pitch better, or pressing to get the strikeout, or pressing to help the team kind of
Mm-hmm.
have that big moment, whether he's doing all of that, it seems to be a pretty big mental problem. So it'll be interesting to see kind of with him on the IL now, and to be able to kind of relax and take a couple steps back and kind of look at film, reflect on everything. If he does that and he comes back with a different mindset, I think it's definitely a possibility that we see the Corbin Burns that we all know and enjoy watching. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out.
Sure. I'm gonna go with nay. I don't know that this is something that he ends up solving this year, and it's hard to say because it's hard to judge mental state, especially when you're not around the guy. But I think it's going to be something where I think it's going to be something that I think, like I said, I think Jay Jackson's going to be a contributor. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be with them the rest of the year. I think Jackson's going to be a contributor. Albers is going to get things turned around, and I see Adrian Hauser as somebody that's going to be an important piece in that bullpen for him. I think it's going to be one of those where it's not necessarily that Burns hasn't gotten himself right, but it might be one of those things where you already have a full bullpen, and he's not necessarily the guy that makes the cut. So I don't think it'll end up being a knock against him, but I do think this bullpen will be something that finds a way to turn it around, and it may not be time for Burns yet. Next one, yay or nay? After the win last night, the team will start to look like the Brewers of last year.
Um, I'm gonna go with yay just from the aspect of, I mean, they would scan the dugout, after we scored runs or whatever, and just to kind of see everybody rallying together. And I know that's something that happens a lot with this team, and they're a very close team, but just to see it, you got Lowe chatting it up in the back of the dugout and doing dumb stuff, doing whatever he does. And I think when you have that big of a boost, especially scoring a lot of runs last night, there's definitely a good possibility that that helps you out and that you start to see everything kind of mold together.
Sure. Yeah, I'm gonna say yay as well. I I it sucks. It's easy to make excuses left and right about good things, bad things about a team. But you look at the series you run into, the two times that they've run into the Giants, who are starting to actually climb back into the wild card race a little bit. The two times they've run into the Giants have been putting up just massive offensive numbers. So once they left Milwaukee, they put up 19 in the next game. So you ran into a team that's just hitting the ball, and you've done it twice with that. So it's hard um, when you aren't necessarily at full strength with just you're not getting everybody together doing their thing. But I have a feeling that things are going to start clicking a little bit. Like you said, the starters aren't the problem right now, and I think this just open a can of worms for other teams. You're going to start seeing the Brewers hitting the ball a lot more, and I'm really excited to see that. And then the next one is Keston Hira is up in the bigs for the long run now. He ain't going back down. Yeah or nay?
I mean, you have to say yay, especially what he's performing right now. And, you kind of expect that to maybe go down a little bit. But, I mean, I can't, I have no reason to believe that he'll ever be called down to the minors unless obviously injury or that can happen. But I mean, just what he's been doing is outstanding and it's helping the team. And it's also, you're seeing kind of that second wave of talent come in for the Brewers. So it's just been amazing and incredibly fun to watch.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm gonna say yay as well for all the same reasons. He's just great. Like I don't really have. There's no really other way to put it other than he's just been lighting it up. And then finally, Travis Shaw will get called up within the next week.
I'm going to go nay on this. We kind of touched on it earlier, but
Sure.
even if I mean, you'd think the move would be he would get called up and Saladino would get moved down, but even then you're running into problems where what if Arcia gets hurt? You have no true shortstop
Mm-hmm.
to replace him. And I mean, there's just too much stuff. And I mean, I look at the San Antonio missions where he's down with right now, and I mean they were winning by big numbers even before he was down there. So I kind of look at that and you think, well, there's already guys on base, and I mean they're a really good team, and it's great to see our future be doing that. So I kind of take that into account too. So yeah, nay.
Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of split between this. I'm gonna say nay, but the reason why I would say yay goes back to us talking about how defense. I'm gonna say in quotations doesn't matter. Obviously, it matters, but the bat does typically play in different situations. So I you don't see teams go without a backup shortstop, and Orlando Arcia isn't a guy that you can necessarily play. I mean, you could play him every day, but offensively, he's not one of your guys that you look at as like, we can't take this guy out of the lineup. You know what I'm saying? But I also, I could totally see them going, Saladino, we're sending you down. We're bringing up Shaw, and then between Shaw, Moustakis, and Hira, someone's gonna have to learn how to play. Someone's gonna have to learn how to take some reps at short. I don't foresee that happening necessarily, but it would not surprise me.
Yeah, but
It would
just
surprise me if they were to send a pitcher down because then you're not at full strength from your bullpen standpoint. But I am going to go nay. I'm just saying like that would be the only scenario that I would see it happening if they decided to do that, which would shock me.
yeah, and even that too. I mean, even Counts talks about it all the time. As much as we do shift, I think you still need that guy who has a crap ton of range and has
Right.
an incredible arm. And they talk about it all the time how the defense kind of revolves around him. So I just would have a really hard time seeing that happen.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. And I don't necessarily think that Garcia should be a guy that's playing day in, day out, not really getting many days off just because offensively, I mean, but at the same time, I don't know. I mean, you play Saladino, you're really hindering yourself offensively at this point. So I just don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens, but your shortstop spot isn't basically what they've said is, from what it seems like, we'll take our lumps because that's our one spot that we know, like that's one of our spots defensively that we know is going to get it done. All right, jumping into the week in review. Who's your highlight player of the week?
My highlight player has to go to Lorenzo Cain just because although he was producing before the All-Star break, he just seemed very uncharacteristic. His at-bats weren't the same. He wasn't getting the contact he normally does. And he just, as much as he was producing, it just was very uncharacteristic for him. So to see him come back out after the All-Star break and after he had the cryotherapy session on his thumb, and to see him have those long at-bats again and to draw walks and get the little bloops into right field. That's been really awesome to see. Your offense definitely changes when he's playing like that.
Yeah, no joke. I don't know, he's been an absolute stud for them, and I I don't know, he's a guy that remember last year where it was just you knew that Yelich and Kane were going to be on in some way, shape, or form to start the game, and like there's just nothing you could do about it as an opposing team, and that's a lot easier said than done, but he's starting to creep back into doing that stuff again, which is great. So Kane getting on early and often is really important for this team to be successful. My highlight player of the week is going to go to Keston Hiura for all the reasons that we talked about before. I mean, in his last 7 games, Keston Hiura is hitting 632, 696 on base percentage, slugging um, like basically 1.211. And then and he's got 12 hits in that span and 19 at bats, hitting home runs, getting extra base hits. Out of his 12 hits, he's got 6 extra base hits. So, I mean, there's just a ton of production coming from him. He's stolen 2 bases, still striking out a little bit. He's got 6 strikeouts and 19 at bats. But he's walking a little more too. He's got 4 walks there too. I'm blown away by it. I knew he was good, but he's just been absolutely on fire. So that's really fun to see. Your disappointment for the Brewers over the past week.
Definitely before last night, taking last night out of account, is the offense with runners in scoring position. We didn't seem to have a problem getting guys on base. I mean, we were hitting a decent amount. It wasn't fantastic, but we were getting some guys on base, but we couldn't just get that double or single to drive them in. And I think that was incredibly frustrating to see because when you have the guys on base and you're just leaving them on base, just sitting there, especially with no outs, that frustrates me to the ceiling. So that was definitely a frustrating point of the last week.
Yeah, for sure. And we've touched on a ton with the pen. Um, really, you we really, really need to see Hader bounce back to being Hader. Jeremy Jeffers pitched an inning well the other night, but really need to see Jeremy Jeffers be a guy that you can go to in a pressure situation. And hopefully these guys can settle into roles of being your seventh, eighth, ninth, that type of thing, or your long reliever. Your guy that's going to give you 2 innings instead of having to throw Hader multiple innings. I know that's something that he's gifted with, but if you don't have to do that, why do it? And I'm looking forward to it. I think you're going to see a bounce back. I think the guys that are going to be infused into the bullpen are going to be major helps for them going forward, but we will definitely see. So going into the next week, who needs a rebound for you?
I have Matt Albers down just because, I mean, we talked about it earlier. He was pitching so much and he was doing so well. So to see him struggle wasn't, I mean, I think we all kind of expect that every now and then you're going to hit a bump in the road. But he definitely needs to bounce back because he's become a key in that bullpen and we need him to pitch well, really in any spot in the game he's used. So, yeah, he definitely needs to rebound after a little bit of a rough outing the other day.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to go with Yasmani Grandal. Over the last 7, he's hitting under 100. You just really need to see a change. I know there's been a lot of frustration creeping in with him too. Him getting tossed from the game the other day or 2 days ago. The guy's frustrated at the dish, and it's something that aside from yesterday, again, like this is a lot of these with these offensive guys. Like aside from yesterday, blah blah blah. So we saw him hit the ball yesterday. Hopefully, that's going to be a turning point for him, and get back to his all-star ways. Then who needs to chill out for the Braves? I mean, obviously there's only one game left, but who needs to chill out for the Braves? Who needs to chill out for Arizona for when they run into them as well?
For the Braves, we've already seen them kind of continually just take gut shots at us. Freddie Freeman, he's always going to be a guy who just kind of, he's like, I don't know, he just lingers and he's always doing something that is frustrating the other team and like getting on the other team's nerves. It drives me crazy how talented he is and that he's always just doing something to help his team win. And then for the Diamondbacks, I have Ketel Marte. I mean, in his last 7, he's getting on base at a 419. He's slugging 577, which isn't that impressive, but his on base percentage is crazy and it's scaring me. And it'll be interesting to see how that matches up in the next series for 4 games.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to go with the starter for today for the Braves with Dallas Keuchel, a guy that a lot of people are crying out for, and he's produced for the Braves so far. In his last start, he went 7 innings, gave up a run, and he's just had quality games. 5 strikeouts in that span, 4 walks is a little high, but he's shown that he can eat innings and he keeps runs low. He's had a few where he's gotten blown up a little bit, but I just hope we run into. I hope that the Brewers are coming in hot off of last night and being able to hit him up a little bit. And then for the Arizona Diamondbacks, I'm going to go with Nick Ahmed, shortstop. He is in his last 7. He's not like necessarily a huge name, but Ahmed in his last 7 is this is with 13 at bats. He's hitting 385, 500 on base percentage, which is huge. And then slugging 462. So not a ton of extra base hits, but he's getting on base. He's walking 3 walks in those 13 at bats, 5 hits in those 13 at bats. That's going to be something the Brewers got to. And Nets fans, sorry, he's only scored a couple of runs. So that's one thing that when you're on base, that's something that you have the potential to score the runs, obviously. So that can swing in a completely different direction if things go a little different when the Brewers end up coming to town. So hopefully they're able to limit the runs scored by him and by Marte getting on base as well. Then the next thing, who needs to stay consistent for the Brewers?
I got to go with Jesus Aguilar. We've seen him, especially since coming back from the All-Star break. Just kind of, I don't know. He just kind of looks like a different player than he was in this season. Earlier in the season, he's obviously not to the level he was in the first half last year, but especially when Thames is starting the majority of the time, it's nice to see. It's nice to know that your backup first baseman can hit now more than he was earlier. And just, he's driving guys in, he's taking good at bats, and, he's being successful in pinch hit appearances. So that's really been huge. And for him to stay consistent, just doing that, I mean, not necessarily being the first half he was last year, but just being able to hit decently well and drive guys in, that'll be huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm gonna go with his partner with their Thames. He seems to always be popping up as a guy that's been a highlight or somebody who needs to stay consistent for the Brewers. I mean, he's over the last seven. I keep going to the last seven, but I mean, him and Aguilar together. Um, Aguilar's hitting over 350. Thames is hitting over 450. They've been sneaky good, and I think Aguilar's been a little louder with his success, but they've been really sneaky good over the course of the last month or so. So hopefully that's something that can continue. And I hate to say it, but say the Brewers aren't in contention, or they decide that they're not necessarily going to go make moves to that they're going to buy at the deadline. Hopefully those are two guys that they can flip for something, because they have been very productive. So then the final thing, let's get into the who has, or sorry, two things. Who has a big week this week?
I have to go with Keston here. He's already, he's had a pretty good last week, but I think just continuing that for him would be huge, and especially for the team. He's constantly moving up in the batting order today. I believe he's cleaning up. So for him, it's huge. It shows good, like, that our organization is well, and we have guys who are going to, be in here in the future, and just for the team as well. He's producing a lot.
Yeah, I like that pick. I'm gonna go with a smaller scale one, but I've sung his praise a little bit. I'm gonna go with Jay Jackson for this week. I think he's gonna be with this bullpen. Like, there's guys that are trying to figure out roles, figure out where they fit and whatnot. I think he's gonna seize an opportunity to fit into a setup role for them. And then, what's your bold prediction for the week?
I gotta say this, that everything's gonna be fine. I think, every team's gonna hit a real rough point in the season where things don't go their way. But, knowing this team and knowing how they rebound and always fight, I think everything's just gonna be okay. We kind of hit a big bump in the road, like a really big bump in the road. But I think everything's gonna be okay, and we're gonna be good.
Sure. I'm gonna go with. I think the Brewers are gonna. I think they'll win today, and then I think they'll win the series against Arizona as well. I'm not gonna get crazy and say a sweep or anything like that, but I think they'll win the next two series, or this series and the next series, which will. You're only, was it 1.5 games back at this point, um, with playing some really bad baseball over a stretch. Hopefully that's something that is, like you said, just a bump in the road, and you can keep pushing forward in a division that nobody really wants to take the top. So, all right. Any questions, comments, concerns?
No.
All right, sweet. All right, we'll wrap this thing up. Everybody enjoy the game today, and have fun watching them through the next series.